March of this year, the third phase of the fire hazard severity zone maps came out from the state fire marshal's office. And what that basically did was establish what are the hazard zones in the local responsibility areas. In other words, the cities of the state. What are the hazard zones? And they were categorized in 3 categories: very high, high, and moderate. And that was new. That was a new addition from the previous version. And so in the city of SLO, for instance, we went from 38 parcels in the very high to over 9,000 parcels across the city in the various zones. About 2,800 of those were in the very high, the most severe hazard.
Yeah. Okay, let's go, James.
All right.
I think before we get off the subject into sports and everything, we should go ahead and start the podcast, JT. Is that all right with you? We're good. All right.
Come on.
All right.
San Luis Obispo Real Estate Podcast. Hal, JT, how's it going, guys?
It's great.
Awesome.
We have a guest back with us. That was great. Probably one of our most viewed episodes we've ever had. So, of course, we had to get him back. So, Hal, go ahead. Let's introduce who we have.
Well, it just firefighter, right?
just guy that puts out fires.
Fire chief.
Yeah.
Firefighter.
So Todd Tuggle, City San Luis Obispo Fire Chief.
Correct.
Yeah. That's the highest level you can reach at the city of San Luis Obispo.
For firefighter.
Mayor.
Firefighters.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right. So we're with the best of the best.
And you came back.
I know.
I came back.
We didn't scare you
Podcast.
off.
This
so-
is actually technically episode 3.
No,
Right,
we did
right.
two.
We
We
did
did two. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
Did
You did
double
2
recording
episodes.
last
Double
time.
whammy.
You know, full disclosure.
Yep.
Yeah.
They did lure me in with the
Yeah.
York peppermint patch.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to know what's that about? I didn't. Hal just said grab him. I
Well,
don't.
no. I
yeah.
said anything that we can do, and he goes, "Well, yeah, if you want to have some peppermint patties,
Yeah. So this isn't a bribe. This is just a lure.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
No, it's
yeah.
an accommodation.
I mean, I'm not
They're
even allowed
delicious.
to touch them until this is over.
Yeah. They're great.
Bring a fire extinguisher.
I don't
and a
blame you.
peppermint
They're-
I
patty.
keep reaching for them and I get shocked every time I get in.
You got to work before you eat, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Depends how this goes and how many you get. All
That's
right.
a good point. That's a good
So we brought you in because there's some new changes, I guess, in California law.
You've been in the news, man. Front page of the Tribune. Huh?
Busy. Yeah. That affects all property owners
Oh.
in California.
Yeah.
And I think you were mentioning before we got started, what we're going to talk about here today for the city of San Luis Obispo basically applies to every municipality in the state. Is that right? So,
Yes.
so what do people need to know? How do they find out? What does the public need to know about this?
Sure. So just a little bit of background. So in March of this year, the third phase of the fire hazard severity zone maps came out from the state fire marshal's office. And what that basically did was establish what are the hazard zones in the local responsibility areas. In other words, the cities of the state. What are the hazard zones? And they were categorized in 3 categories: very high, high, and moderate. And that was new. That was a new addition from the previous version. And so in the city of SLO, for instance, we went from 38 parcels in the very high to over 9,000 parcels across the city in the various zones. About 2,800 of those were in the very high, the most severe hazard. Alongside of that came the every 3 years we do a new code adoption for the building code and the fire code. And this year was the first year of the California WUI code, or the California Wildland Urban Interface Code.
Okay. Yeah.
And so the WUI code is essentially taking the parts of the building code addressing home hardening or structural hardening, and then the fire code that addressed like defensible space and things like that and vegetation management, and it combined them into one spot. So that's the new WUI code. And so what the WUI code does is it basically establishes a series of rules in 3 chapters, really. Infrastructure, chapter 4, home or structural hardening in chapter 5, and then defensible space, vegetation management, things like that in chapter 6. And so each zone, well, for the city of SLO, for the city of SLO, each chapter applies to a different set of zones. So chapter 4 applies to all the zones. Chapter 5, home hardening, applies to the entire city. And then chapter 6 applies just to the very high fire hazard severity zone. So in a nutshell, that's essentially what property owners need to know at the basic level. It's on our slowcity.org, slowcity.org/fire is our website, or Slow City Fire. You can type that in; it'll take it to us. That's the baseline of the information.
James, we'll be able to like print that so viewers can see it. The website slowcityfire.org.
Slow City. Yeah, if you type in slowcityfire.org, that'll get you there.
Yeah, I'll add it to the description and I'll put a tag underneath. As you're speaking right now, I'll go ahead and put it underneath there. So,
All right,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
I
for
appreciate
sure.
that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I might not have got the exact verbiage or the exact letters right.
I'll find it for you.
Thank you.
So the fire risk to any one of us in the community hasn't changed. This map just is intended to make us more aware. I think you said a few months ago, yeah, we have wildfire risk here, even though we haven't maybe experienced much of it. We have had a few.
Yeah.
But
it's a great way to put it. The reality on the ground hasn't changed from yesterday to today, right? Well, okay, with the rain, it changed a little bit. But essentially what this is doing is it's identifying the hazard, which is the vegetation around the city, and then it's identifying how the cities or how the municipalities are going to respond to that hazard relative to their position to the vegetation. So another way of saying that is the closer you live to the open space, the higher the hazard is that vegetation burning is going to impact your structure. So that's what the maps look like.
It sounds like the communities, the municipalities have sort of been put on notice to go, okay, you guys got to clean up some of the surrounding space, right? Am I reading that right?
I mean, so yes and no. I mean, it depends on who owns the property, right?
Okay.
So the rules apply to the owner of the property. So for instance, if you back up to state-owned land, let's say, your responsibility is up to your property line.
Okay.
And then past that, it's the other property owner's responsibility to address whatever that hazard might look like. So whether it's mowing or grazing or whatever the case may be. So it really depends on who owns that land. Now, if you back up to another neighbor, then obviously you're both probably playing under the same set of rules, and that's what the maps and the code tend to do or intend to do.
So I got a notice, and I missed the city meeting, but if you're I'm personally in a high fire hazard zone,
okay,
right? So I got a notice about it, but I was put on alert. But if I pay attention because I need to share people what's going on,
right?
So how does someone know they're in a fire hazard? High or extreme? What is it? Extremely high or high?
There's very high.
Okay.
Is the red.
Yeah.
High is the orange.
Right.
And yellow is moderate.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. So how does someone know? They're going to get a notice?
So if you live in a very high,
Right.
you should have gotten a mailer if you live in the city of SLO.
Yeah.
We sent out about 4,000 mailers.
Okay.
To property owners and residents.
Was that the postcard that said we're having a meeting?
Yep.
Okay,
That's
good.
the one, exactly.
Okay.
If you didn't get that, I would double check on the fire website that we just talked about, and there is actually an address search engine there.
Great.
Where you can do that. You can also go to the cities. If you type in City of SLO parcel viewer, there's actually a way to look up individual parcels, get parcel information. The map layers are on that map as well. So you can type in your address, you can pull up all of your parcel information, and then the map layers are there as well.
Okay. So let's talk specifics. So what does one have to do? When do they have to do it?
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
So the first thing that I think is really important is that if you live in a very high fire hazard severity zone, you have a home, you live there, nothing to your home, the physical structure is required to be changed. In other words, there's no retroactive implementation of the rules for the structure itself. Okay. So that's Chapter 5 of the WUI code.
So wood shake roof. You're just doing that for insurance purposes. It's not a requirement.
It's not a requirement.
Okay, gotcha.
Now,
You're not that smart, but
well, I've heard that a lot. So okay.
Chapter 6, on the other hand, which only applies to the very high fire hazard severity zone, that portion, defensible space, the maintenance requirements of it are in effect right now, and then they will change and become more clear. There's more definition in the WUI code on January 2nd of 2026. And so what does that look like? So what that means is that there's a 0 to 30 zone. That's called Zone 1. And that is essentially a fuel modification zone. So basically what you're looking at is keeping your grass trimmed, keeping your shrubs trimmed, keeping your trees limbed up to about 10 feet, keeping the branches of the trees from overhanging the roof. You have to keep them away from a chimney and a stovepipe. A lot of them are fairly,
Common
logical.
sense.
Yeah. That goes into effect January 2nd. The one little curveball. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Quick question: 0 to 30, is that just a metric, or is that like 30 inches away?
I'm sorry, 30 feet.
Oh,
so 0 to
feet.
30 feet. My bad.
But most of our setbacks are 5 to 6 feet.
They could be on the sides, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So
Okay,
if you live,
in residential,
some of the lots are a little deeper,
larger.
than that.
Yeah.
And so the ultimate, so zone 1 is 0 to 30,
Okay.
and then zone 2 is 30 out to 100.
Okay.
And so essentially, everybody in the state is required to address fuel modifications out to 100 feet or the property line, whichever comes first.
So you used the word requirement just now.
Yeah.
So these are not suggestions.
No.
These are new requirements.
Correct.
Which means that you really don't have a choice.
Correct.
Unless you decide that you are going to have a choice. Then what happens when somebody says,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it?
So our intention in the city, and this doesn't necessarily hold true for other entities, so I'm not speaking for any other entities, the county, other cities. In the city, because we recognize that we went from 38 to 9,000, we understand that this is a huge shift.
Yeah.
Our intention over this code cycle, which is 3 years, is to push the educational piece.
Yeah.
So we have received a grant through FEMA to hire 2 interns, train them up, working with the Fire Safe Council here to go out and help people understand, here's what needs to be done. Here's what is going to bring you into compliance. We do have the tools to follow up with administrative citations, or we will once it goes into effect in January. But the intention 100% is to go out and educate the public. And I picked that 3-year time frame for a very deliberate reason, is that the one big wild card out there is the Zone 0 requirements. So if you're familiar with the Safer from Wildfires initiative, one of the 10 mitigations that they recognize for discounts, affordability or availability is a 5-foot ember resistant zone. That's in the Safer from Wildfires initiative. That is looking to be codified in the code, in the California Code of Regulations in January. And that was a executive order that came out in early February to be implemented by January of 26. We don't know exactly what those rules will look like, but once they go into effect, Zone 0 will be retroactive with a 3-year grace period. So what that means is existing property owners will have 3 years to comply. That's why we're talking about this 3-year code cycle window to really educate the public on what defensible space looks like.
And money's an issue here.
Money's a huge issue.
So I'm a well-intentioned homeowner in the red zone.
Yep.
And I'm retired on a fixed income and I don't have the dough to do it.
Exactly. And that is what we expect to be a very common occurrence. With 2,800 parcels, we expect we're going to run across that a lot. So one of our early grant submissions through CAL FIRE is for, it's through drawing a blank on which grant program it's through. But anyways, about $125,000 of that grant application that we put in is specifically dedicated to partner with nonprofits in the community to help address those types of issues.
Right.
So you are, on a fixed income, you don't have the means, you don't have the methods, you don't have the dollars. Let's identify that. We can use that. The education piece is going to be for us to help identify those customers, those property owners, and go out and help them get to a more resilient community.
So specifically, I just try to think, okay, what's attached to my house in that 0? And I think, okay, I got a wood gate on the side of my house. That's going to have to go.
That's going to have to go, yes.
Okay, so you put in wrought iron or something that doesn't burn, or no gate, or what are some solutions, and what are people kind of looking at? But I want to get back to the interns as well.
Yeah.
So how do people get that? But one, is that bring out an intern, or is that too something we can kind of talk about here as well? I mean, what that looks like.
You mean in terms of the Zone 0 and what's attached to the fence?
What I actually have to do most likely for the common home,
I mean, the fence is the big one. If you look at you put a cedar fence up against a home and that thing catches fire, that flame is going to it's going to transmit right into the structure. It's going to go up into the eaves, and that's a very easy transmission and a pretty common one. So the fence is a big one.
So the whole fence.
Well, just what's within within the first 5 feet. So
5 feet. Okay.
So if a fence touches a home, it's going to be that first 5 feet that has to be addressed.
Your gate, let's say, or
correct.
or close
Exactly.
out. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. Now you mentioned the 5 foot setbacks. That's going to be kind of an interesting one because actually there's a 4 foot setback allowed. So we're going to have to have some some conversations in the city about if it's not touching but within 4 feet. We're going to have some conversations about how we implement or enforce that.
What are some options? So like it can't be wood. Can it be like a synthetic material? Because if you want to have a closed gate, but it's private, or does it be metal, or do we know yet?
So we do know that metal, we do know that concrete, both of those are going to work within the regulations. The one I can't speak to right this second is PVC. So we do have some suppliers in the city. I can't really endorse anybody, and maybe if you rattled some off, I could kind of nod at you. But we have some suppliers in the city that are rapidly coming up to speed on what the materials are that will be supported for both home hardening, but also the defensible space piece. So the fencing, the decking is another big one, as well as like outbuildings like sheds and things like that. So there are materials that are on the market. They are reasonably priced, and they are going to be compliant with the codes that are coming out.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is a big deal, isn't it?
It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal.
How much of your time do you spend on this right now?
I spend probably at least half my time working on this, and my fire marshal is probably closer to 80 or 90%. But it's important. This is the thing, you mentioned it when we started. We haven't had a significant and let me rephrase this. We have not had a destructive fire in the city of SLO ever. We haven't had one that's burned, even a handful of homes. We've been close. We've been very close. And we talked about this on the last time I was on your show. But we know other cities that have. They've been in the north. They've been in the south.
And we don't want to be one of those.
And we don't want to be one of those.
We haven't had a heart attack yet. Right? If you switch at the minute, there's a risk. We're trying to minimize
the
risk.
There is a risk.
Yeah.
And so, I think the first thing is really recognizing that we have a risk.
Yep.
And then we start to say, well, what do we do about it? And that's where we've got some tools. And I would say the city is doing an excellent job of trying to get as many resources as we can. The city itself is facing some pretty uncertain budget times in the near future. And, if you've been following council, you realize that, we're looking at a structural deficit in year 3 of our budget. We're in year 1 right now. So there, our internal means are not necessarily there, but we are reaching out in every vein to try and get those resources to help our community.
If I have a question about this whole issue, who do I call? Do I call your department?
Call the fire department.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go to our fire department website. We've got our contact information there. There's a ton of resources on our website. If you're able to. If you just want to call and you want to ask some questions, feel free to do that as well.
Did your phone calls spike after the newspaper article last week?
We got a lot of calls last week. I mean, last week was also fire prevention week, so we're hitting every fire risk known out there. But the timing was timing worked out okay.
You're making it through.
We had Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday covered with fire prevention.
So again, I've got an oak tree that maybe over my fence, and I'll just use my home as an example. Sure. So what would someone expect to have to get done most likely? Like if you were one of the interns and you have the common house in town where you got a wood fence around it and it's a 5 foot setbacks on the back and a deep backyard, what are you really looking at doing most likely?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I've been driving around and obviously I look at it with a very different lens than I did probably even a year ago.
Right.
The biggest thing that's going to come down, or the biggest thing I think we'll see is maintenance of vegetation.
Okay.
So I see a lot of hedges that are 9-10 feet tall. They need to be up. They need to be kept up. Do they need to be torn down? Not necessarily, but they're going to need to be maintained.
Do you just come spray paint labels on them like it says flammable?
No,
right?
We're not doing that.
On a big hedge in orange?
We're not doing that.
No. Okay.
Trees is another one, making sure. So the reason that trees, I want to dispel something very important right here. There's no intention on the part of the city to go order people to cut down their trees. I want to be super clear. We made that hopefully as clear as we could in the council meeting.
Sure.
Trees are an important part of this conversation. I'll take a little segue here, and I apologize, sort of. The city has taken a very aggressive stance towards climate change, and the city is trying to achieve carbon neutrality 5 years ahead of what the state's trying to do. And part of that is the acquisition of open space and the preservation of trees. So trees are an incredibly important part of the ecosystem, part of lowering the CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere. So it's very well understood that, a carbon neutral stance is actually a really good climate change prevention. And climate change is one of the biggest reasons that wildfires are becoming so much more intense than they were even 20 years ago. So there is very much a recognition of the value that trees bring to the community. So we don't need to cut down a bunch of trees in order to be fire safe. Now, there are certain trees that don't help our cause. There's some eucalyptus species, some Italian cypress are really challenging. There's some other trees that are not really ideal. But the biggest thing is maintaining those trees and keeping them in good shape.
Trimming, not cutting down.
Not cutting down, limbing them up. Because what we want to do is we want to keep that ground level fire from using ladder fuels to get up into the crowns. And then once they start to torch, they start to throw out embers. And ember cast is the key component in the new maps. When you look at how the zones extend into the built environment, that's the ember cast from the vegetation that's landing in that built environment. You think all the videos from the Palisades where you're just watching embers just fly past. That's coming out of that vegetation, and those embers are landing on a receptive fuel bed. They're starting more fires. Eventually start vegetation and then structures on fire, and that's how you get that urban conflagration that we watched in January down in LA. So we're not here to cut down trees. In fact, we actually think trees are an important part of the ecosystem and actually an important part of the overall strategy towards wildfire prevention and risk reduction. So I think to your original question, we're going to be looking a lot at maintenance of existing. We're going to be talking about some species is probably another big one. And then the fences is going to be another big topic of conversation.
I'm the Hal Sweasey with his house in the red zone, will the interns that you're hiring, will one of those interns, if I invite them, will they come out to my house and coach me on what I need to do?
They absolutely
Is that what
will.
they're there for?
That's what we're looking for.
Oh, great.
And
That's
so,
awesome.
Yes. So we just got that direction from council on Tuesday to move in that direction. And so come the first of the year, we've got training already. We're working through training, getting it lined up with the Fire Safe Council and county-wide regional effort. And then starting to have a scheduling system where if you want us to come out, we will come out. We'll schedule the time. We'll meet you out there. We'll have a set of suggestions that we can hand you. It's not legally binding. It's just us trying to give you the best information we have access to.
Hey, Hal, I think I'm going to volunteer you.
I'd love it. Well, I just need to know, okay, I mean, I'm in a position where I can do it, so I'm going to need someone to trim some trees for me, and we might need to move a fence or change
What
materials.
I'm thinking is if you want to train one of your interns, I'll help you with that, won't you?
Oh, cut their teeth on my house? Sure.
Yeah.
Perfect. There we go.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too that's important is I know with your podcast you have a lot of ancillary industries involved, construction and landscaping and things like that, and that's a big piece of this overall effort is to work with our landscape architects, our landscapers, our development community on understanding what those requirements are so that they can be tracking down the materials, so they can be tracking down the methods. I give a lot of credit to our building official and our fire marshal who have met with, we have I think it's every other month, the developers roundtable where we get a lot of the contractors and the developers in our community. And the last one we had 2 weeks ago was specifically about the WUI code and what the new requirements were going to be and getting them up to speed so that they understand what those requirements are. So that when you call your contractor or you call your landscaper, they are already equipped. They can help provide that guidance to you. But it's a process. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And fortunately, we have staff that are well committed to making this happen and moving forward.
Well, that's why we're here today. One of my clients said, I got this notice in the mail. What's it mean? And I go, I don't know, but I think I know a guy.
But you know a guy.
And that's what I mean. That's what we do, right? So, and then, I think about some of the landscapers I know, if they get, I don't know if you have to be certified, but it's probably just a set of rules. If they follow them, they're going to help our customers be in compliance.
Absolutely.
So,
and we have this other really, sorry to cut you off. We have this other really amazing resource. We actually have a consortium of professors at Cal Poly called the WUI Institute. And it's the Wildland Urban Interface Institute, and it's comprised.
I got to stop you between WUI and very high. I'm worrying about all these, acronyms that are happening in
I
there.
didn't bust out with FHSZ yet, but yes. But we have the Wildland Urban Interface right here at Cal Poly, and it's a consortium of School of Architecture, landscape architecture, engineering, physics, GIS, goodness gracious.
Biology, a botanist. There's a couple of tree guys I know.
The natural resources department is there. I think there's 13 different either departments or schools that are involved in the WUI Institute and actively doing work in a bunch of different areas.
So does that mean if I'm fixed income, elderly, I don't have really the money to do it, I can potentially get somebody at Cal Poly to come out and give me some advice?
Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to ask that question.
Yeah, that'd be a great resource.
Yeah. Your interns will.
Our interns,
when you get them trained,
but they won't do the work.
No,
right?
Yeah, right.
No,
they won't do
not.
the work.
Yeah.
That's where that collaboration with the contractors is going to come in handy.
It sounds like the intern role is going to be key for you guys to help the community go through this process.
It absolutely be essential to being successful with this effort.
And I do think about like elderly, right? They don't go to meetings as much. They stay at home. They're not going to know. So how can we help get them the word out so they know that there are choices for them?
I don't know yet. I think we're going to have to work on we typically, we being the fire department in particular, tend to focus a lot on electronic means of communication.
Right.
So social media, Instagram, Facebook. Not everybody's on those. And so we really need to get more aggressive about finding people where they're at. And so if you know of those, that would be a great way to help us, whether it's at the senior center or at, whatever the location is. That's where we need to get that information.
That's great.
Sounds like a grassroots deal where like if you live in a city and you're in a neighborhood and you know someone elderly and their house looks like what's it called? A bonfire.
Hey, this
we need to reach out and say, hey, have you had this? Do you know you can get help with this? Because it is dangerous for everybody.
This has been great, guys, but we're running up against our clock here. Yeah. And so
if I can add to that point, and if I could add one piece, and I think you bring up such a great point, Hal, is is really about knowing your neighbor. Right. So one of our campaigns is within the fire department is know your neighbor, know your zone, your evacuation zone, and know your plan. But knowing your neighbor is about knowing the people that live around you. Right. And, if you are the one that maybe can connect your neighbor who doesn't have the connectivity through a social media, and you can help your neighbor get connected to us, we will come out and see them. We've met with hundreds of people just in the last couple of months. Community groups, neighborhood groups. We get invited out to sit in a cul-de-sac and talk to people about this. Great. So we have a whole group. So please know your neighbors. Give us a call. We'll be glad to come out and visit.
I'm not going to tell my wife about the program. Firefighters, she's going to want them to come over to the house. Yeah. I'm just saying, you guys aren't coming to my house.
And on that note,
we should call it a day.
Hey, Hal.
Rewind it 30 seconds and then end it.
I'm leaving that in now.
Okay, fair enough.
Thanks, Chief.
All right.
It's been great.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah, Chief, we
really
appreciate it. So we're going to see if we can break the record that you have with all the views. I think you had like 60,000 views on your episode. So
goodness gracious.
Yeah, it was insane. It was good.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, it was great.
Let's go for 61.
Didn't realize you had such a big family.
Don't tell them that.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, it's really I appreciate being here, and thank you. And I get a lot of props for coming and hanging out on your show. Like,
Perfect.
how did you get that invite?
Yes.
Kind
Yeah.
of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
So thank you.
It's a big deal, let me tell you.
Right. That's what I understand that now.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal. All right, everybody. So thank you, Sal. Hal's giving us the axe here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into our podcast and watching our content with amazing people like Chief here. So make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll continue giving you more great information. Hal, I think we have a lender coming up too, right?
That's
Talk
right.
about
Next week.
Yes.
some stuff coming on.
We're on fire.
All
Let's
right.
go.
Good one, Hal. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.